So there's this huge debate happening in Taiwan's education system right now, and it was all kicked off by the recent junior high exams. You've got students who are just completely burned out, experts are on totally different sides, and it really all comes down to one big question. Are we actually testing what kids know, or are we just testing how fast they can read?
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? This is what we're hearing from students everywhere, and it just perfectly captures that feeling of frustration. I mean, can you imagine studying for your science final for weeks, only to feel like your grade really just comes down to your reading speed? That's the feeling at the very heart of this whole debate.
So how did we get here? How did every single subject on the exam suddenly start to feel like one giant reading comprehension test? Well, the answer actually goes back to a pretty big shift in the curriculum a few years ago.
It all started with this thing called the 108 curriculum. Now, the idea behind it was actually pretty great. Let's move away from just memorizing facts and instead focus on applying knowledge to real-world situations, using these so-called competency-based questions. Sounds good in theory, right? But well, how it's played out has led to some pretty surprising results.
And just how big of a shift are we talking about? Well, get ready for this. According to tutoring centers that analyze the latest exams, the number of these competency questions has just exploded. I mean, look at this chart. For subjects like English, social studies, and natural science, they now make up a staggering 75% of the entire test. That is a massive move toward these new and often really, really wordy questions.
And here's what that actually feels like for students. The number one complaint we're hearing isn't, "Oh, I didn't know the answer." It's, "I literally ran out of time." The sheer length of the questions is turning these exams into a frantic race against the clock, where how fast you can read can seriously matter more than how well you know the material.
Okay, so as you can imagine, this has kicked off a pretty fierce debate. On one side, you've got critics and exhausted students, and on the other, you have officials defending this new direction. Let's kind of break down what each side is arguing.
To really get why students are so frustrated, you just need to see this one number. 12,158. That is how many characters were in the natural science exam alone. Just let that sink in for a second.
And here is where it gets truly wild. The natural science exam, a test on biology, chemistry, physics, had more characters than the Chinese language exam itself. I mean, come on. When your science test requires more reading than your actual language test, you know something's gone a little sideways. So this brings us right to the heart of the matter. You've got critics saying this is a huge overcorrection, that it favors kids who are naturally fast readers, and that it could even make educational inequality worse. But then, the official body that makes the tests is pushing back. They claim the real number of these questions is under 30%, which, you'll notice, directly contradicts the data from the tutoring centers, and they insist the whole point is to test problem solving, saying that scores show students are getting used to it.
But, hold on a second. This entire debate, on both sides, is kind of built on this hidden assumption, this idea that to test competency, a question has to be long and complicated. But what if that's not true? What if that's just a myth?
This is the real question we need to be asking here, isn't it? Is it really possible to test deep, practical knowledge without burying the question under a mountain of text? Is there a better, smarter way to do this?
Let's just go back to the official definition for a second. A competency-based question is supposed to test your ability to solve problems and apply knowledge. Notice a word that's missing there? Yeah, length. Nothing in the core idea says the question has to be a short story.
In fact, there is a perfect example of what some are calling a 5-star competency question that totally proves this point. And you're not going to believe it. It's only one sentence long.
Here it is. Please use fluid dynamics and elastic mechanics to explain why high cholesterol increases the risk of a stroke. That's it. That's the whole thing. It is so short, so direct, and unbelievably powerful. It doesn't need pages of background info. It just asks you to connect ideas from different subjects to explain a problem that exists in the real world.
And when you really break it down, it's pretty much a perfect competency question. It's interdisciplinary, right? It blends biology and physics. It's got a real-life context. I mean, that's something we can all understand. And it demands some serious reasoning, not just spitting back a fact. All of that packed into just one sentence.
See, to answer this, a student can't just remember one thing. They have to build a whole chain of logic. They have to connect the biological idea of cholesterol narrowing your blood vessels to the physics concept of fluid resistance, which then leads to higher blood pressure, and finally to the mechanical stress on those vessel walls that can cause a stroke. At the end of the day, this single sentence does everything those 1,000-character questions are trying to do, but honestly, it does it so much better. It's a true test of critical thinking and how you apply what you know, not just a measure of how fast your eyes can move across a page.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The path forward isn't about giving up on the idea of competency. It's about getting way, way smarter about how we test for it.
All right, so let's just pull this all together real quick. What have we learned? Well, first, these super long questions are at risk of just becoming reading tests. Second, the idea behind competency testing, applying knowledge, is a good one. The problem isn't the concept, it's how it's being done. And finally, as we just saw, a fantastic competency question can be incredibly short and to the point.
So the goal shouldn't be to just get rid of these questions and go back to old-school memorization. No, it should be to elevate them, to make them smarter, more elegant, to challenge students to think, not just to read faster. We can and should free students from drowning in all this text and let them get back to what matters, actually solving the problem.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with today. As we all think about the future of education, we have to keep asking ourselves this question. Are the tests we're designing just measuring the ability to process words quickly, or are they truly getting at the heart of what it means to understand something?